Yo, how's it going? This is talking about obedience. Okay, so biblical obedience. We got several characteristics, including faithfulness, reverence, sacrifice, love, and intimacy. So we've discussed obedience. We've discussed faithfulness. Let's look at reverence. Let's read it off the page. Reverence. Obedience involves responding positively to divine instruction out of reverence for God. Okay, when I say the words reverence of God, I get this like celebrity feel. Like if God just showed up, you know what I mean? If a celebrity walked in the room, they would have a certain presence. Uh, when a kinfolk walks in, it's a certain thing. When your wife walks in, it's a certain thing. You know, one time I was having a very loud argument with some family members. Someone knocked at the door, and I was like, "What the?" As I opened, because I was going to say, "What the f do you want?" And when I opened the door, there was a cop standing there, and my demeanor changed immediately. So the reverence of the fact that there was a cop there was a thing, and the so it can have all different type of connotations, and the the other way is like that's just like the presence, but then like the esteem, like who do I see God as? You know what I mean? He created everything, so it's just like wow, you know. So there's like this, you know, kind of duck down feeling where it's like wow, you know, this is God. You know what I mean? And then uh, we see where Jesus called the disciples friends and everything. So there's another reverence where it's just like this, you know, he's my buddy, you know, and then there's, you know, my dad can whoop your dad thing. So, you know, there's this reverence that develops a courage in us to continue on through the hardships, no matter how big the enemy is. You know, the David and Goliath situation. Yeah, he said, who are these uncircumcised Philistines? Well, the circumcision was a covenant with God, the creator of everything, right? And he's like, he understood like the creator of the universe, like he's above everything. And here's this piddly old little deal, and then there's like a group of them or whatever, you know. So this is like the bristles on a whisk broom in the hand of any human being. You know what I mean? You can just throw it down. It ain't nothing. You know what I mean? So like God, he knew that God could overthrow these people. You know what I mean? So that's what he's saying in that moment of reverence, where he's like, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Like, what's this guy going to do?" You know what I mean? And how often do we get psyched out that we need to remember that, to reverence God? You know what I mean? So the walking in obedience, part of that is reverence. Let's see what this thing says when we type in the word reverence. We're going to use our tools. We're learning how to use tools today too. You know what I mean? Like why not learn? You know, it's our tool. We'll use it. REVER. Define biblical reverence. Click. All right. Show more. Show us more, O device. In the Bible, reverence is a feeling of deep respect, love, and awe for something sacred or a devotion to God. It is a response that leads to worship, and it is demonstrated by honoring God's authority and recognizing his greatness. Hot dog. I guess we're doing pretty good so far in our off-the-cuff descriptions. Man, let's look at this. The deep respect, love, and awe for something sacred or a devotion to God. I'm not sure what they mean devotion to God. It is a response that leads to worship. So it's going to change the way you act. People say worship and they talk about, you immediately think about singing a song, but it's not necessarily that. Like if I choose what day of the week to take off and trying to be obedient, that's an act of worship. I got stuff I need to do and I take time off because God said that is worship. and demonstrated by honoring God's authority, yeah, and recognizing His greatness. Okay, wow, so that's right on. Here's some examples of reverence. Let's read along. Leviticus 19:30. God is deserving of the highest level of reverence because of His power and majesty. That's Leviticus 19:30. The Bible records reverence as an automatic response of those who encounter God. That's in Numbers 20, verse 6, Judges 13, verse 20, 1 Chronicles 21, verse 16. Okay, so, I mean, there's 3 witnesses right there. Focus on this for a second here. The Bible records reverence as the automatic response. Let's watch this right here. Watch this real close right here. Automatic response. Automatic response. Automatic response. You don't have to think about this deal. If God the Father shows up, you are going to respond automatically. Okay, that's a big deal. God taught the Israelites how to show reverence through laws related to worship, purity, and holiness. Deuteronomy 5. So who taught them how? God. God taught the Israelites how to show reverence. So if you want to know how to properly show reverence to God, consult the Owner's Manual, in this case. Owner's Manual Bible, book Deuteronomy, chapter 5. You see what I'm saying? So we got related to worship, but we got related to purity. Oh man, that's real good. And then I'm trying not to make this too long, but reverence is a big deal. Okay, the Leviticus 16:2 describes the Holy of Holies inside the tabernacle required the highest level of reverence. So you had the way, the truth, and the life. Okay, so the truth of the life, the way, the truth, and the life, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. But inside the chambers, you had 3 chambers. Yeah, so you'd show up out here or whatever else like that, and you get cleaned up or whatever. Then you go over here and you get ready and do all this kind of stuff, and then you go into the Holy of Holies. Right here at this part, they would put bells on them and stuff like that. That way, if they went behind the curtain where God was, if they dropped dead, they could pull the rope to pull them out of there. Because they wasn't going in there either. Because with the Holy of Holies was the actual presence of God. This was not your average show, put on, whatever. I mean, this was the spot. I mean, it was the bona fide, better get right before you go, and it was a big deal anyway. If you wasn't in the right way, you were you'd die. You just die. So they had to pull you out with a rope. That's how serious it was. Then we got the serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. Okay, so that's Hebrews. So, okay, here we go with Paul writing to the Hebrews in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, 28. That's in the New Testament. A lot of people get wrapped around the axles about the New and Old Testaments and all this kind of stuff. And what I want you to realize is, Jesus said, depart from me, workers of lawlessness. If you think you're just going to do this deal however you see fit, you're not the first one to do that. You're not the first one to encounter the things of God and think, oh, well, I'm going to worship God my own specific way, and that's cool. And to a certain degree, it's got a thing, but when it's in a group form, you know what I mean? When it's the group of people, and they're performing certain acts, as in worship service, and then the way that they would give their sacrifices and all this kind of stuff, it was very specific. Now, Jesus fulfilled very specific steps and had very specific authority, and also led a sinless life to be the perfect sacrifice. That's part of the law of atonement. So the more that we understand that, the more that we study the law, the more we will be able to have reverence for God. But then we will also be able to understand how following Jesus and his teachings literally points us back directly to the original teachings. And somewhere in the midst of all this, you get a situation with the governments and the religions and all this other kind of stuff, and it gets convoluted and very confusing. Okay, so if you'll go back and read the Bible for yourself, don't worry about what I said. Don't worry about what your Google device said. I am a guide. I am a sign saying, read the Bible. Let the Bible be your teacher. This Google device has given us verses here, right here and now. And this is a system for how you can look this up and figure out how to reverence God, which is a part of obedience. Which obedience and working out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Like, you need to understand why you should be afraid. You need to understand why you should revere God, and you should understand how to be on His team, and what it really means to be a part of the kingdom, and what that specific thing in you that He created in you to reach out and be a part of this world. You're guided by Him, but you're in a broken world, and so's the rest of His kids. And we don't want to lose any of the kinfolk. We want the kinfolk to rule and reign on the new earth. And for that to be possible, we need to walk in a certain way. And that requires a reverence. That requires the blood of Jesus. That requires that we fulfill all our role, you know what I mean? And as reasonable service for what's been done for us. You know, if my boss gives me a check for driving the truck, but I don't deliver the load, that's not reasonable. You know what I mean? I have to deliver the load. You know what I mean? And I got to do what I got to do. I got to learn to be a proper man at this stage and season of my life, and reach out to you guys and be like, hey, you know, this was intense research that most people could not do 30 years ago. But in today's age, 12 minutes, we know reverence now. And we got, you know, stuff where we could feed ourselves. We could feed ourselves with these scriptures, and we could decide, hey, you know, where's this at? You know, I just know I had to learn how to ask the right question. A lot of times you're going to see people that will say stuff, and then you will develop a question, but are you asking the right question? Do you know what question to ask? You see, and that will come with experience and age, and it's just like an ongoing journey that you'll never get to the bottom of, because God is infinite. But we can get past basics. You know, like we have an instruction manual. You know what I mean? You can read the manual, and it's real confusing or whatever like that, because all the reasons I just said, but we can use our device to narrow it down. You know what I mean? Like, I could use my rangefinder to figure out how far the target is, and then, you know, clickety-clack my scope to put the, you know, round on target, you know, and I can hit the target, you know, because missing the mark is sin. To whatever degree that you miss the mark, you know, some of it's deadly and some of it's just inconvenience, but, you know, if I make the cut, if I hit the mark, I don't have to go around that hill again. I've overcome that part of the teaching. And then as I reach a full maturity and I've spread the maturity to the yonder, I will walk and rule and reign in the yonder on the new earth. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. The earth is just a proving ground, y'all, and you'll see it more and more. If you'll just keep looking into it, you'll see it, because your soul was around before your body. Think about it like this. You get out of, you're in the car, you're driving. Like, I pulled up to my buddy's house. He looks at my car. He says, "Oh, is this you?" I'm like, "Yeah, look at my wheels," or whatever. Okay, well, when I get out of the car, I step out of the vehicle, and now I get into his vehicle, but he's in control or whatever else like that. So that's like riding with God. You know what I mean? Okay, so when my soul steps out of this Kenworth, and then I get into my Ram pickup to drive home from the truck stop, you know what I mean? This is inanimate. And this over here is inanimate, but I'm bringing a life to it when I embrace it, when I enter into the vehicle. See what I'm saying? So when I leave my carcass in the ground, my soul, my entity, will take a nap, and then it's Judgment Day, and then it's on to the new earth. Like, it's just like this rock concert for Jesus. It's like part of it is talking about everybody's dressed in white. The light is coming from the stage, and it is God. You know what I mean? Like, he is the light of the world. And when you read the description, it sounds a lot like a rock concert. You know what I mean? I'm just like, rock hell, you know what I mean? And like, I love it, man. I love it. It's awesome. All right, it's about twice as long as it was supposed to be. So, yeah. All right, rock hill.